Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax, and let's chat about what is going on up in the stars above us today. And it's Friday, so it is the weekend astrology that we'll be talking about today. I always count Friday as the beginning of the weekend, so we'll be talking about today and tomorrow and Sunday, and that means we have a lot to talk about. Now, this morning's show, I titled the doo doo. No, I didn't. I titled it the You Know What Gets Deep. And that's partially because we are in a time period where the planet of the deep, transformation, empowerment, otherwise known as Pluto, is changing directions, heading on to his path to complete a journey through Capricorn that began back in 2008. And of course, Pluto stirs the deep, right? He stirs up everything and he makes us look at what isn't working and what's not sustainable and all of that, you know what. And then as well, on Sunday, we have the planet Mercury moving into Scorpio and it gets deeper, right? Mercury, and we already have Venus in Scorpio. So we have these Scorpio planets that are already, or these two inner planets that will be sitting in Scorpio, digging up, digging through even more of the depth of things, right? So that's why I named the show that today. Now, it doesn't mean that it's really, crappy or anything like that, but it does really ask us to take some, deeper dives into some of the things that we've been tolerating, right? Or that we've been living with. As I start the show this morning, let me shout out a happy birthday to Asa, one of my favorite people in the world out there. Today is her birthday. And another one of my favorite people that joins us in the morning, Narges, it is her birthday tomorrow. And my favorite twins have their birthday on Sunday. So happy birthday, Terry and Teddy and Narges, and to my friend Asa. Good to see you all joining in this morning. So let's start with the weekend while we wait for the bulk of the people to show up. Um, this weekend, actually, about in an hour, the moon will move out of the sign of, excuse me, Capricorn, where it's been sitting, and move into the sign of Aquarius. And that means for most of the weekend, we are living in an emotional field that is mostly detached, right? We step back a bit when the moon is moving through the sign of Aquarius. That gives us an opportunity then to really express our true selves, to be authentic and not so much worry about what other people might think about us, right? If there's an emotional drive, even if it's a little more detached, to really express ourselves in our true way, right? In a way that makes sense to us and to honor our true selves. But there's also a sense of breaking free from conformity because Aquarius does not like conformity. This is a sign that wants to break barriers, break through the old, and punch its way into the new. So, breaking free from the norms and from the routines of our lives is a big theme when the weekend, or any day actually, when the moon is moving through Aquarius. Um, this is also a time to foster some social connections. Above it all, Aquarius is an air sign. The air signs are networking, they are friendly, they are outgoing, they love to have conversation and share ideas with people. So it is an ideal weekend to be able to, maybe focus on discussions around technology or innovation or what's new, what's breaking into our awareness, and to do that with like-minded people, right? People that are in your communities that you hold a resonance with, or that share your values or share your vision for the future. So explore new ideas this weekend, as they may be new approaches to problems, new solutions on how to solve problems might be coming up. Looking toward the future is another one of the moon's goals in the sign of Aquarius. um, Aquarius energy, unlike Capricorn is kind of facing the past and tradition and the old, right? Where Aquarius is looking for the new, the untried, the breaking ground on something new and exciting, exploring again, new ideas and new solutions, things like that. And there's also an opportunity for us to break free from attachment to emotional issues that we are handling in our lives, or at least to break the pattern of how it is we emotionally deal with the problems that are going on in our lives. In a way, we can view emotions from a distance when the moon is moving through Aquarius. And it may feel easier to us to analyze our feelings, to really see, the connections. All of these things can be approached through a more logical vein because logic is an air sign energy, and Aquarius, deals with logic energy. Now, there are potential challenges, as there always are with any movement of any planet through any sign, through any house. It can raise itself to the highest vibration and or express in the lowest vibration, and it is you that gets to choose how excuse me, how it is you're going to express this energy, right? So the potential challenges is that we get too detached in our emotions as it relates to people in our lives, so our closest relationships. Now, detachment can benefit our clarity of being able to see the truth of what is going on, that emotional distance, helping us a little bit. But be mindful of how that emotional distance can impact your relationships, especially if someone is looking for you to actually, you know, respond with some kind of emotion. And on the other hand, we also have to watch out for overthinking and for that feeling of disconnection. Aquarius energy can sometimes be overly analytical, right? It's air again, right? Overly analytical, leading to that overthinking or that sense of disconnection from the emotions that are available to feel, and instead leaning into the mind or the thought processes. So, overall, the moon in Aquarius this weekend is a time for us to embrace change, to connect with one another, to look toward the future with maybe curiosity and hope. Hope is a big one, and also with optimism, right? The optimism, even though things are kind of crazy, if it isn't, you know, well, you know what I mean. Things are crazy. Things are happening to people that, have never happened before. Even though all of that is happening, it's a great time for us to nurture our individuality and to align ourselves with communities or with people that we really truly resonate with or who hold the same vision of the world as we do. So that's the weekend. And I just want to say hello to everybody popping in here this morning. Diana S., first one out. Good morning to you, Tom. Hello. Happy Thanksgiving, Canadian style. Is it Thanksgiving for you? I did not know that. What is the you know what? The doo-doo, Tom, the doo-doo. Good morning, Joan Durchie. Happy to be with you this Friday, she says, and we're happy to have you join us. Tina, good morning to you. Lex the Hex, good morning. Asa, of course. Thank you for joining us on your special day. And TD Hawk, good morning to you. And J Lo, hello. And Debbie Tibbetts Tumiel, good morning. Good morning. And J Lo, everybody wishing everybody a happy birthday. I saw you out there, Narges. I know you joined us a little late, but I wished you a happy birthday as well. Your birthday is tomorrow, of course. And we also have Marianne. Good morning to you. And Londa. Hello, my friend. And Tom, I can't say it on air. You know what the doo doo is, right? When the blank hits the fan. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of what it is I want to talk about today, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this lately. For whatever reason, my voice wants to be froggy. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this final push of Pluto moving through the last degree of Capricorn in preparation for the ending of that cycle and the beginning of the next cycle. Now, even though we've had a preview, right? We've had a taste test of Pluto in Aquarius a couple of times now. And here he sits now at 29 degrees of the sign of Capricorn. And today, as he moves direct, it is a time for a lot of the changes that have been wrought during these last 16 years to really sit in and land within us and to set us up for what comes next with the Aquarian energy of Pluto. So I thought what we would do is take a look at Pluto first, right? We talk a lot about the planet of empowerment, of transformation, of death and rebirth and regeneration. He holds a lot of bang in our charts, literally, for being the smallest planet in our solar system, for having been demoted from planet to dwarf planet. He still holds a lot of power. And if we ignore that power, it is at our own peril, right? Our own peril, because then we miss what happens, right? Or we miss how we could have made a different choice in moving on in the future. So let's look at Pluto now viewed through human design and the gene keys, because those systems give us different words, right? And they give us a different way to interact with this very powerful little dwarf planet. Now, in human design, Pluto, like he does in astrology, represents deep transformation, and the themes of truth and empowerment come through the words that are part of the experience of Pluto. And Pluto has a long cycle, of course, spending many years in each gate, right? Each gate, if he spends 16 years in a sign, as he did with Capricorn, then he spends anywhere from 2 to 3 years per gate that he's transiting through. And that's taking in his forward motion and his backward motion, and then forward again, and sometimes backward over this into the same gene key or same gate again and again, right? So Pluto is really a representation, a symbol, an archetype of deep transformation, but he's at the level of the collective, right? So you, me personally, we can go through many transformations. I go through transformations every day. I'm sure you guys do too. But Pluto is about the collective, the soul of humanity, and the collective evolution or the collective transformation that we go through, right? So it's operating at a level that encompasses a broader number of souls. And the changes then that Pluto brings are often playing out over a longer period of time, and we don't really always see it moment to moment what is going on, right? Certainly, when Pluto first moved into Capricorn and the economy took a dive and the mortgage industry blew up and banks were closing like crazy, we knew that something big was going on. But then, a couple of years later, that calms down. Then we have this pandemic that happens during this period of time. And we have all of these different movements that erupt during this period of time. And yet, if we from our position here, if we look back, we can say, oh wow, there has been this really powerful force of deep transformation running through the collective. Even though while we were living in it, it had this feeling of woo, something big's happening, and then it waned, and then woo, something else is happening, and then it waned, right? So we have it's spreading out over time, but the perspective where we sit now, we can look back and we can see, wow, we have been through a lot. So, going back to human design, when we look at the energy of Pluto, his influence really involves empowerment through uncovering hidden truths. So, empowerment through uncovering hidden truths. And it brings to light the buried aspects of our personalities, of our belief systems, of our physical institutions and systems that are not sustainable, right? It's about us releasing what no longer serves us. Although we don't always look at it like that, right? Nobody looked at the economy diving back in 2008 as something good. Everybody was scared, right? Oh my God. So the process can be intense, but ultimately, Pluto brings greater self awareness, greater empowerment to us as individuals, but even bigger to us as a collective. All right. And each of the gate uh, activations that Pluto has gone through, and we're talking in Capricorn now, he lies in that gate for a few years at times, right? So its influence is slow but profound. And each gate represents a specific energy or a specific theme. So when Pluto activates a gate, and this is human design or gene key, if we're looking at gene keys, it intensifies the transformative process that that gate or gene key operates through, or that theme that that operates through. So, for example, right now, Pluto is sitting at the gate 60, one of the last gates of Capricorn, and the first gate that operates in Aquarius. And Pluto's presence here amplifies themes that are present in that gate, which are limitation, realism, justice, right? So it's an invitation. He invites us in this case to reconsider how we navigate the boundaries of these institutions, of these, systems that we're a part of, and then to seek fairness, right? Seeking fairness. He wants to level the playing field, right? He wants to make empowerment a theme for everybody across the board. Now, this is a collective evolution, as I said. So, Pluto's transit through the gate does affect you as an individual, but again, affects the bigger collective energies of the people on the planet, humanity. And it shapes societal themes and generational shifts, right? I was born in the Pluto and Virgo generation. I'm sure there are some of you here that are the Pluto in Libra generation, and maybe even some of the younger ones that are the Pluto in Scorpio generation. These are generational, and older people, of course, might be as well. So the Pluto and Leo generation. And Pluto challenges us to evolve on a large scale, generationally, but also collectively, and then also individually, right? Breaking down old structures, old paradigms to make way for new growth, right? So he comes in, you know, there's down the street here, one of my neighbors is building a new house, and they've had to go through this huge process of deconstructing what was already there on the land, which is the remnants of a huge old tree whose root system was incredible. It took 5 trucks to haul away just the root system of this tree. And that deconstruction is what has to happen before we can build. So before they could build their house, they had to take out this whole old root system, right? The tree had long since died. The root system, however, was still in the ground. So Pluto, same thing, right? Comes through initially as the destroyer, deconstructor, and then paves the way for us to begin a new building, a new construction, right? A new societal norm, a new way of being, a new consciousness. Okay. So, the lessons of Pluto in all the systems, astrology, human design, gene keys, is all about perseverance and resilience, right? Working with Pluto's energies really requires that from us, that patience and that resilience, because the transformation process it initiates within us rarely is quick and easy, right? It usually is going on and on and on. And endurance is the only way that we really can deal with this energy that Pluto is bringing to us. And because of that, Pluto changes are long lasting, right? They don't end just because the transit ends. So, in human design, this planet emphasizes then the importance of staying true to yourself, be staying, in alignment with your true north, enduring this process of evolution, even when it feels icky, uncomfortable, challenging, right? And it does right now. Feels really bad some days, right? So Pluto in again human design, gene keys, but also in astrology, is a force of profound transformation on the planet, and it influences both the personal and the collective journey of change, right? Of growth, of evolving. So the energy brings awareness to areas of life where we must grow and evolve. So Pluto in Capricorn brought a collective shift to all things Capricorn. And now here we are at the very pinnacle of that shifting energy. And if we look back now, what kind of shifts have we seen since Pluto was in Cap, right? And so Pluto's transit through Capricorn started in about 2007, right? When he first made his foray into Capricorn, then backed off and then came back in. So fully in Capricorn from 2008 through 2023, because he started the move into Aquarius and then went back to Capricorn. So there's always this transition time between his moves, right, from one sign to another. And here are some of the significant shifts. And it's kind of mind boggling if you think back, right? The very first thing, the transformation of institutions and power structures, right? That was the first thing that we started to see, the breakdown of traditional systems, the mortgages, the economy, the banking system, things, the retail stores, how we, bought and sell, and how all the economic kind of things that were tied to systems. But we also saw systems crash in education and in medicine, and all of the court stuff, and the the big governments, right? These big systems. There's a big restructuring that was being brought to the institutions like government, like corporations, even finance, and medicine. All of these pillars that we've had in society, that we've depended on in our societies, were upended, right? It revealed corruption, it revealed abuses of power, right? It urged us as participants in these institutions to transform or face collapse. And the ones that collapsed weren't able to transform. Either that or they weren't sustainable. They were no longer necessary. And if we think about all of the exposure of corrupt people, of corrupt systems, of corruption at various levels of government during this time, it was all due to Pluto moving through Capricorn. And it also revealed our personal shifting of attitudes towards authority, right? That's a big theme here as well. There was widespread questioning. There still is questioning of authority figures and hierarchies. People began to lose trust in the traditional leaders and institutions, which led us to call for accountability, for transparency, for changes, right? The the very ugliness and corruption of those systems was being shown to us so that we could sweep it away, right? So that we could change it from the very fundamental, basic, bottom of the barrel energies, right? And there was another thing going on here, and this was like a redefining of success and ambition. What did it mean to be successful? And we're moving still from the material to the meaningful, right? Capricorn's associated with ambition and drive and achievement, and all of that's been redefined. Pluto's kind of influenced the collective to question, what does success really mean? Right? What does it mean to be successful? Moving away from the purely material world or status based measures to being more purposeful and sustainable as a definition of success. Right. And of course, this begins with sort of the younger generations, right? The Pluto generation in Libra, the Pluto generation in Scorpio, even the Pluto generation in Virgo, which is the age group for most of us, I would imagine, began this transformation long before Pluto moved into Capricorn, right? So we all have this role. We're all a building block in as a generation in this change that eventually is wrought through the Pluto's move in Capricorn and eventually into Aquarian energy. So we're moving away from that material and more into the questioning of, well, what does it mean to be successful? But at the same time, we're also questioning leadership, and we see this rise and it's a slow rise, admittedly, of more ethical leadership, right? This period sparked a desire for leaders who embody integrity and responsibility. Now, of course, that takes a sideways trip through conspiracy theories, through characters who play out narcissism and ugliness and the entrenched what they call the swamp, draining the swamp kind of things in governments and so forth. But the whole purpose behind that is to expose how that isn't a positive in the world so that we would transform and ask more from our leaders, right? Um, we're becoming more concerned with the collective good than just profit or power. So those systems, those corporations, those communities that are staunchly ingrained in that old power structure will find themselves dying away, right? There isn't a structure or anything that can support that anymore. And so we see, in governments around the world, we're testing out different people, different ideas, different ideals, right, as potential for leaders. Now, do I think that, we have hit upon the right thing yet? No, no, not at all. Right? This is a process. It's a process. All right. There was a reevaluation of economic systems, right? The financial crisis and all the calls for reform that brought. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008 in a financial crisis, and it exposed the flaws in the global economic system, breaking down supply chains, breaking down the ability of a corporation to withstand the changes that were happening. It catalyzed changes in the banking system and in banking regulations, and it increased our awareness of economic inequalities, right? And inspired movements that advocated for financial reform, right? We have the idea of the 99% and the 1% that comes up during this period of time. And we shift toward decentralization. That is probably one of the biggest themes that was going on here. The transit fostered an inherent interest in alternative economic models, right? The BRICS nations form, right? And there are the European Union falls apart, and the United States with the dollar backing things being questioned. Is that the way that we want to keep moving? Cryptocurrency born during that period of time and decentralized as a financial instrument, right? And as people were looking for systems that were less dependent on power and structure, we see what is happening, and that's the crumbling of the old financial structures, right? There was also a revolution in work and productivity, changing work structures, right? That was all going on during this Capricorn turn. Pluto and Capricorn coincided with the working culture change, right? The idea of why do we work 8 hours a day? Why do we work 5 days a week? Why do we have to, do things like this, this old way that we've always done things? People were seeking a better work-life balance, right? Our lives had got out of balance. They still are to some extent, right? Where we work 40 to 60 hours in a week and only have, 2 days worth, 16 hours worth, maybe 20 hours, maybe of free time. Actually, 48 hours if you count, sleeping time. Um, so we were questioning the traditional corporate environment. And this period also saw a rise in remote work, freelancing work, and the gig economy, right? Things are changing big time. And then the pandemic, even taking that further, right? People forced almost to work from home. And the fact that we could see how easy it was with our technology to support a work life balance, that was different, right? That was different. So there was also a focus on sustainability and long-term planning. Capricorn values that sustainability, right? And long-term goals. They're visionary in terms of the creation of a goal and the having the patience and the wherewithal to stick with it through to see its logical conclusion or it come to fruition. So it increased our awareness, our individual awareness, but our people awareness of environmental issues and how what we were doing in terms of, creating I mean, you could just look at plastic. That's just one thing that comes to my mind, and how, we have this whole, world of goods based in plastic, but then we have floating piles of plastic out in the ocean because we don't know what to do with it. It doesn't degrade, it doesn't break down, which is leading, of course, to new technologies. I was just reading about one with the adoption of a protein or an enzyme that can break down plastic in a safe way, breaking it down to safer components that can then be used again in a different way. So there was a push towards practices, there was a push towards rethinking how we utilize our resources, right? There was also a social awakening, a big one, a collective awakening of systemic inequalities. And that showed up through social justice movements, right? Pluto's time in Capricorn highlighted the dynamics of inequality, and especially concerning things like race or gender and economic status, right? Those are the three big things, right? Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, and this idea of the 1% versus the 99% and the wealth inequality in the world. So it saw the rise of significant social movements that called for structural changes and equal rights, and that prompted many to examine the role of institutionalized discrimination, right? Endemic within a system. Calls for structural reform then came out of that. It fueled the demands for significant reforms, like in law enforcement, through healthcare, through education, and people recognized these systems were not equally serving everyone, right? So how it it is upending the whole idea of those things. And in in the bigger realm, this was in preparation for the Aquarian themes, the Aquarian values that are coming next, right? So as we look back today, before Pluto moves direct and spends just the next month, lasting his last month in the sign of Capricorn, what's the transition to Aquarian values doing for us in the destruction of everything that's come before? And here's this noticeable shift that's occurring in themes that are associated with Aquarius, such as innovation and technology and community driven efforts, right? Grassroots, the human qualities, right? That create change. And many of us all began focusing on collective empowerment, the value of diversity, and a sense of global interconnectedness, right? That we all impact what happens here, impacts other nations around the world. And all of this happening in anticipation of Pluto's move into Aquarius for the next 20 years, right? So, Pluto's transit through Capricorn really exposed the weaknesses and the limitations in our existing structures, systems, and institutions. And it created space for reform, right? For us to rethink, for profound change in the way that we run our systems. And it's been a time of deconstruction, but deconstruction is necessary before we can reconstruct, right? We have to have a clean slate. We have to have at least exposed the things that aren't working in order to build what comes next. So, uh, while Aquarius is aligned with themes of innovation and humanitarianism and technological process and progress, um, it it will take time to get to the juiciness of that because we are building that new on the ashes of the old, right? So we're still in that process. And we have a more inclusive and more forward thinking time that's upon us. But what gets exposed is where that isn't happening. So don't expect it all to be flowers and, happiness and yay, yay, yay right away, because the ugly part gets exposed first, right? We have to look at what's not working. We have to look at what is needing to deconstruct before we can construct that Aquarian age. All right. Questions? How's everybody doing out there? Uh, Good morning to you, Patty. Good morning to you, Teddy. All right. I don't see questions. So apparently I've got everybody thinking deeply here this morning. Now, let's look at Pluto in the gate 60, which is a Pluto gate, or which is a Capricorn gate, but also an Aquarian gate. It bridges the two signs astrologically. And in quantum human design, the gate 60 is referred to as the gate of conservation. In traditional human design, it was called the gate of limitation, which I always bucked against, right? That just irked me. But it emphasizes themes of pragmatism, patience, resilience, the wise use of our resources, and so forth. So as Pluto moves through this gate 60, it amplifies those qualities. It makes them bigger, and it brings a deep transformational energy or focus on how we manage and conserve our resources, both personally and collectively. So if we look at this picture of the gate 60, the first thing we see Pluto's job is here is this transformation through acceptance of limitation. Right? That's the part that gets me. I don't like to accept the fact that there's limitations, but there are, right? In order to have the ability to grow, you have to have a stable foundation first, right? So you have to be able to limit yourself to building, go back to our construction model. They had to dig up all these old roots first before they could lay the foundation to begin to build this house, right? So it is where we are at this moment in time, right? Learning to conserve our resources. Pluto in the gate 60 really challenges us to confront and accept those limitations, right? That oil isn't going to last forever. Therefore, we have to make some changes in how we use fuel or how we adopt new fuel sources. And yes, electric isn't perfect. We have the whole issue around batteries and all of that, but right, it's at least it's a move in the right direction, and we have to deal with the advances and the problems that the advances might also bring to us. And all of this can feel very restrictive, right? It feels restrictive to us, but accepting that there is an issue that requires us to look at for sustainability purposes enables true conservation, right? It's about recognizing what we have and using it wisely, and then finding a way to innovate with those constraints or within those constraints, right? And in that process, we have to cultivate patience. It isn't going to happen overnight, people. Those kinds of changes that we're going to make are the ones that we're going to make significant errors with. Right? We're going to make significant errors. I was having, I think it was you, Tom, you and I were talking about lithium mines and how the movement from an oil resource to a battery driven or electrical resource drives the batteries are all built on lithium, and the absolute tragedy of what lithium mining does to the earth, right? So by solving a problem, we've created another problem, and those are going to be the steps that we make. Those are going to be the problems that come in that we're going to have to solve. And let's please do it without shaming, blaming, and guilt tripping people, right? We can go, oh, gosh, well, we didn't anticipate that that was going to be the problem. So let's see how we can work together to fix it. That will come in that Aquarian age. That will come with Pluto and Aquarius. But right now, we have to look at the limitations. We have this limitation. We created a strategy to overcome that limitation, but that came with other problems. Now we'll have to look at the strategy and see how we can work with that strategy to fix that problem. Ultimately, we'll stumble upon it. We do, right? We do these things. But it takes patience, right? So this gate 60 teaches us to work within the boundaries that we have that are present and then wait for the right timing to make the next step. Maybe we jump too quickly into electric cars that have lithium batteries that blow up when they get wet, that are linked to horrible mining operations and things like that. Maybe we jump too soon. Right? It's possible. But let's not, guilt everybody and shame and blame. Let's solve the problem, right? That's the 60. Let's solve the problem. And we're being encouraged then to use those limitations as catalysts then for a more sustainable approach to life, a more sustainable approach to using vehicles, a more sustainable approach to the environment, to corporations, to everything, right? And here's where we're harnessing then pragmatism and realism in this particular gate. We have to take a grounded approach to change. That's what we're being encouraged to do. This pragmatic outlook focusing on what is realistically possible within given limitations. Without doing that, we have no structure or form to support what comes next, right? So we're pushing for change in reality terms as opposed to just idealism terms. I mean, I'd love to say, yes, let's do all these great things. And we did that. And then we're looking at the problems that that approach brought or is bringing. So we have to make the best of what's available now and create practical solutions for what will stand the test of time for tomorrow, and embracing a structure then for growth, right? That's what this is all about. If we have sustainability, then we can stand the test of time. We can be patient. We can endure. We can be resilient. Okay. Now, we also have to honor cycles of transformation. We have to accept that there are natural cycles that are beyond, what we can control, and the cycles and rhythms of life, right? There have been times on this planet when there have been climate changes and problems. We weren't alive then, so we didn't see it. It's not part of a written record, so how could it have existed, right? But now we think that these problems are all just something we've created magically in the last 100 years. Well, I'm sure we've contributed, but we've got to take a bigger view of this, right? We have to honor that there are natural cycles in climate, there are natural cycles in business, there are natural cycles in our own lives. And those natural cycles that are a part of the whole planet are the things that we have to tune into, right? Accepting those natural cycles. They're a natural part of the process that allow us to renew allow space for renewal and regeneration. And that means evolution happens within boundaries, right? It's just not runaway evolution. We have to evolve within boundaries. So Pluto in gate 60 focuses on evolving within a certain structure, a certain form, or a certain boundary. And it encourages us to recognize the constraints are not obstacles, but are necessary frameworks, right? Within which we can transform and evolve. It's much like why you as a soul chose a body to live in, because you could experience things in this body that you can't experience as the soul, right? You came into this physical being so that you could walk your path, so that you could experience challenges and obstacles and love and touch and all the good stuff, right? So the boundary, the constraints of your physical body house your soul so it can experience life. It's kind of the thing on this planet, right? So evolving within boundaries. And then in the process, we're reevaluating our collective values and our systems that support our values. And Pluto in gate 60 inspires the collective values toward preservation of resources, urging us to consider the long-term impact of lithium mining, right? Of using batteries that explode, considering the long term impact of our actions. How does it impact the earth? How does it impact the solar system even, right? Not many people think of it in that term. How does it impact the environment, the economy, society as a whole, right? To bring it down more to the realistic here on the earth. And this gate calls for responsible use and conservation of resources to ensure that they are available for future generations, right? It's really short sighted to destroy the Amazon rainforest, right? Because our future needs to be able to breathe, and those trees in that forest bring oxygen to the earth. So we got to take the long view here. And then we have to embody the higher purpose of conservation, which is moving toward an acceptance of flow, creating flow, going with the flow, flowing with the go. And at its highest expression, gate 60 leads us to a deep acceptance of that idea of natural limitations and trusting in the timing of things, right? That if we are pushing against timing, then it doesn't work out right. And Pluto's transformative energy in the gate 60 cultivates a sense of trust, hopefully, for us in the process, knowing that conservation ultimately leads to greater alignment with life's flow, with the natural rhythms and cycles. And Pluto has been at this gate for a while, and he is at this gate for a long time yet. So these are things that are coming up for each of us in our personal lives, in every community, in every group, in every state, in every nation, in the globe, right? These are themes that are coming up. So, by conserving our energy and our resources, we align more deeply with our own purpose, right? Being able to use structure to our benefit rather than fighting against that constraint. And it brings sustainability, right? Sustainability. And so the transit of Pluto through this gate 60 urges us to transform how we view and use resources and fosters a more resilient and resourceful collective consciousness, right? For all. Woohoo! All right. Now let's see. I was going to go through Pluto now at the gene key 60. But, I think I'll do that in, a writing because I only have 15 minutes more. But let's just look at it real quickly. If we look at the gene key 60, we're using, it's the shadow of limitation. It is the gift of realism, and then ultimately the city of justice. So we're moving from limitation to justice through realism. And I think justice throws me here. That word as the city kind of throws me a little bit. And that's why I do really want to talk about that in terms of the deeper gene key expression of that energy. We'll just do that maybe on Monday, or I'll do it maybe in another video or something. But no, the shadow is limitation, right? That's the fear. The fear part of the gate 60 or the gene key 60 is limitation. The gift is being real, getting realism, the acceptance and practical use of limitations as a framework, right? That forms the foundation of something that allows you to grow. All right. Now, there's also something else happening this weekend, and that is Mercury moving into Scorpio. And here we have a shift toward the deeper, more intense desire, passion to uncover hidden truths, right? Lifting up that carpet and looking at the doo doo underneath, right? What's hidden there? And then putting words to it, right? Expressing it. And this transit of Mercury and Scorpio invites us all to engage in topics that we might typically avoid, right? To communicate in a way that's more probing, more insightful, and revealing, and bringing up hidden aspects, right? Kind of, the emperor's got on no clothes. What is that? The emperor has no clothes on, right? Everyone was afraid to say it, but let's say it, right? Mercury and Scorpio. So we also have this increased depth and intensity in our communication, as Mercury is the planet of communication. And it is a focus on getting to the core of something, being able to speak right to the heart of something. Conversations may take on a more serious tone between you and others. You we may feel compelled to dive deeper, right? To look underneath, to seek out what's hidden beneath the surface, which means that we might have, deeper conversations. But if you think about Mercury being the planet of the news as well, the information cycle while Mercury's in Scorpio can also be quite revealing, right? Bringing things up from the depths, right? There's an opportunity for more direct and honest communication while Mercury is in Scorpio as well. It coming right at something as opposed to passive aggressively. In the lowest expression of Scorpio energy, it's that, tail that comes up with the sting that, passive aggressively hits you, and instead addressing the real meaningful topics, desire to cut through the superficiality and go right to the heart of something. But there's also heightened intuition and perception during Mercury's transit through Scorpio, the ability to read between the lines, to see what's not being said, to hear what's not being said, and we might be picking up on subtle cues, which makes it easier to sense what others are thinking or feeling. As well, this would be a great time to explore the depth subjects like psychology or the mysteries of the mind or metaphysical subjects, spiritual subjects, things like that. There's a fascination with Mercury and Scorpio with all the things that are mysterious, right? The mysterious things, anything related to the unknown, the untried, right? Let's look deeper. And we may explore people's motivations for doing what they're doing, behind their behaviors, or seeking out the deeper meaning in all of our interactions with people. And then, of course, Mercury is in a sign that is transiting through Scorpio, a sign that is co-ruled by Mars and Pluto at the 29th degree of Capricorn. So there's focus, you bet, on transformation and on release, processing, letting go. I'm almost sick of doing this, but maybe I haven't done it enough because I'm still finding things to process and let go of. Scorpio's energy is transformative. And with Mercury here, there's an opportunity to process your thoughts and your feelings, your beliefs, anything you've been holding on to. And it's a powerful time of letting it go, right? Just letting it go. And especially if it's a pattern or a belief that no longer serves you, right? And that's, global, but because Mercury is a personal planet, it's also you personally experiencing this. And you might also find that people are discussing change and they're discussing growth and how do we move on from where we are. And there are going to be different ideas about what that means. Scorpio isn't a sign that is seeking cooperation. That was Libra, right? It's not a sign that's seeking the collaboration. That was Libra. Now it's going to the heart of something and just say, calling a spade, right? Calling it like it is, addressing the taboo, addressing what nobody wants to really see, nobody wants to really speak about. So there could be curiosity around topics like death, like sex, like all of the things that are considered like taboo, right? Taboos. Dive into the occult, dive into the esoteric, the spiritual, the higher vibration of Scorpio is about self mastery. So with Mercury, it's looking for topics that help you master yourself. And the potential challenges, of course, are pretty obvious. I don't know that I need to speak to them, but there's an intensity here of overthinking, perhaps. That's a very Mercury thing. Mercury, as the ruler of Gemini, who holds Jupiter at this point, can also make us tap into, more and more thinking, trying to solve problems through the level of the mind. And of course, that does not always work, right? The mind cannot solve the problem. It can only show you awareness around the different parts of the problem and different solutions to those problems, right? The decision isn't in the mind, but we can certainly become obsessive in our thinking, and that can create anxiety. It can create, over stimulation in the mind. There's also secretiveness and suspicion here. So somebody on the television says one thing, and all the conspiracy theorists jump on it and say, "Oh, that's not the truth. You're lying." I mean, sometimes you're almost afraid to say anything to anybody because of being jumped on about that being something of a conspiracy. But that's really coming from this desire that we have to uncover the truth, the capital T truth in things, right? We we aren't tolerant anymore of lies. We want transparency. So in Mercury and Scorpio's digging for that truth and going there, wanting to go there and get that truth. All right. And then strive for balance, though, in communicating these things, right? So you could say to somebody, look, I did some research on this and this is what I discovered. And that other person then has the opportunity to say, okay, that's interesting. Maybe I'll take a look at that. And you could have a conversation, right? We have to learn to communicate differently while on the hunt for truth, right? And for the bigger truths. All right. We also have a couple of transits going on this weekend that are worth noting. First, Mercury in Libra at the very last degree of Libra, squaring Pluto at the very last degree of Capricorn. And a square is always a clash, right, between harmonious communication, perhaps, and the deep transformative energies of Pluto in Capricorn. And it can lead to powerful conversations, but it can also lead to confrontations and conflicts. So Mercury in Libra finishing his transit there is really caught up in the diplomacy and in tactful communication, addressing, people, from the more peaceful, harmonious perspective. While Pluto in Capricorn is insistent on our confronting difficult truths and then addressing power dynamics. And the square creates the tension that makes it difficult to avoid the issues that are being brought up. So, how we can handle that is by being very aware of how we are communicating with one another, how we are saying what we are saying to one another. But we may feel compelled to express our opinions. We might be compelled to speak our personal truths. Anything that we've previously held back might just come up and out. So we be mindful though, right? You can speak what your truth is, but without insisting that you're right, because you may not be right. You're right according to your truth, but your truth isn't my truth. My truth isn't that other person's truth, right? So we have to allow these different things to, um, you know, live out their lives, right? Information to me is one thing, and information to you might be something completely different. But know that clarity and honesty is required in all interactions during Mercury's transit in Scorpio. So, what we are looking at the end of this transit with the square, the 29-degree Libra and 29-degree Capricorn, is about approaching intense conversations with openness, open heartedness, and willingness to find common ground, right? To help navigate the challenges of the transit, especially when Mercury the next, few hours later moves into Scorpio. The sun is also trine Jupiter this weekend. That is a lovely transit. It's uplifting, it's harmonious. The sun is in Libra, Jupiter's in Gemini. It is social, it is networking, it is relationship centered. So it's intellectually stimulating. So that might override the square, the tension. So it's all available for us this weekend. Just make sure that in your conversations with people, you remember that we all have different points of view, and all points of view are welcome. They should be welcome, right? Okay. Let's see here. Any questions? Do exposed, TD Hawk says. So much exposed with the lack of action for Helene aftermath and people addressing it. I've been observing the collective action, private people working within these communities. You're going to see more and more of this, by the way. As time goes on, we are not going to be able to depend on governments or institutions to come to our aid when something goes wrong. So when a Helene or a Milton destroys lives, property, the structures that are part of the civilization, we're going to have to be ready ourselves to do this, to come together in grassroots kinds of movements to help sustain one another. We are not What has Capricorn's or Pluto's transit through Capricorn showed us? That those systems don't work, right? They're not sustainable. So we're going to have to find a way to bring it more at the community level, right? How do we work together as organizations that provide help to people who are in need? That's a big problem to reduce down to a smaller group of people, but that's where we're headed, right? We see it every day with different laws being undone, that we're being asked to grow up, to be evolved, to be responsive in our neighborhoods or in our communities, right? That doesn't mean that the federal governments don't help or that they don't contribute funds. But as we've seen time and time again, they are not able to respond quickly enough to the needs of the many. So it's up to the many to respond to the needs of the groups, the people, right? All right, let's draw a card. I was thinking of drawing a Halloween card. This is the Halloween. You saw me do this earlier this week. I did that on the Living Astrology community. Stacy DeMarco, the Halloween Oracle. Let's do that just because it's a fun deck. And because we've talked a lot today about transformation and death and rebirth. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? This time. So let's look here and see what we've got. Ooh, Skull of Darkness, blind spots. Ooh, let's see what this is all about. Here's what the card looks like, right? Spooky, Skull of Darkness, blind spots. But look at the light up at the top. All right, so Skull of Darkness. Let's see what this is about. Oops, past you. By the way, there's a skull of light, a skull of stars, a skull of flowers, and here's the skull of darkness. And it always starts with a little poem. Here's the poem. We may not wish to delve there, the shadows, the darkness, the unknown. Yet when we search, we reveal, and our power, it has grown. The beautiful and mysterious skull of darkness encourages us to look to the part of ourselves that normally remains hidden or as unseen as possible. We may not appreciate or like certain aspects of ourselves, and yet sometimes our greatest treasures lie within these areas. How many times have you heard of famous artists or people extremely successful in their fields being bullied for for being so different? Yet it is their very differences from others that make them so powerful. Additionally, all of us at some stage of life have certain blind spots that may cause us grief and trouble. Although we cannot see the issue clearly, it is the repeated patterns of pain that may alert us to them, symptoms, if you will. For example, the same things keep happening over and over again. We may be betrayed repeatedly. Fail at something repeatedly, not complete tasks continually. Peace and pattern breaking can be achieved by doing the work in uncovering our blind spot, or even consulting trusted close friends or professionals to assist us to see what we cannot. Whoa, that card fits right with everything we've been talking about today. The skull of darkness are blind spots. All right. That is it for me today. I just wanted to remind everybody that next Thursday, the 17th, we are doing a class on the Spleen Center, which is where the gates of fear are. And I want to show you how to move those gates of fear into thriving. It's possible, right? We don't have to stay in the devolved state of fear. We can move to thriving energy. And I should get that link for you and share it on the screen before I leave. So one moment here while I get that. I should have thought of this sooner. It is an $11 course. It is on Zoom. It is recorded, which means that if you can't attend live, you can still have access. Let's Control V that. And there you go. It's at both Facebook and in YouTube, or it will be shortly. And I'm going to show it on the screen. There we go. That's the Facebook one. I wanted to show this one. There we go. That's it for me today, guys. Take care. I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Happy birthday to all of you having birthdays this weekend. That's Asa and Nargis and Terry and Teddy and anybody else who I'm missing. Mwah! Much love to you all. Bye for now.